In an extraordinary turn of events, viewers of Fox News were left stunned as Senator Lindsey Graham and Sean Hannity seemed on the verge of tears while discussing the future of Donald Trump and the fate of the Republican Party. The normally composed duo appeared to be grappling with the harsh reality of Trump's diminishing influence and the growing political clout of Vice President Kamala Harris. This emotional breakdown came during a live broadcast where Graham, in particular, made a desperate plea to the American people regarding the upcoming election. Hannity, usually resolute, also seemed to falter, visibly shaken as he discussed the declining support for Trump and the uphill battle the former president now faces. What is driving this palpable anxiety among the leading voices of the right-wing media empire? It's simple. Trump's poll numbers are slipping, his legal troubles are mounting, and Harris is proving herself to be an effective leader in the eyes of many. Fox News is finding it increasingly difficult to reconcile Trump's blunders with their efforts to paint him as a political savior. This unraveling narrative has pushed the network's anchors to the brink, resulting in what can only be described as a televised meltdown. In this video, we'll dissect the key moments from this dramatic broadcast and explore how Fox News is spinning Trump's failures while struggling to manage the rising star power of Kamala Harris. 1. The build-up to the meltdown. Desperation in the air. The tension on Fox News had been simmering for weeks. As Donald Trump's legal troubles intensified and his once-iron grip on the Republican base began to loosen, the network found itself in a difficult position. For years, Fox News has been one of Trump's most ardent defenders, portraying him as the champion of the American people and the only one capable of defeating the so-called radical left. But now, with poll numbers reflecting a growing enthusiasm for Vice President Kamala Harris and President Joe Biden's handling of national crises like Hurricane Helen, the network's propaganda machine has begun to falter. On the night in question, Lindsey Graham appeared as a guest on Sean Hannity's primetime show, and what transpired was nothing short of astonishing. Graham, looking visibly distressed, warned the American people that the upcoming election would determine the future of the nation. "If we don't do something about it by November 5th, he said, his voice quivering, "we've got nobody to blame but ourselves." His plea, though ostensibly aimed at mobilizing Republican voters, sounded more like a cry for help. The usually fiery senator was clearly shaken, as if he already knew the inevitable outcome. Trump's defeat was becoming increasingly likely. Graham's appearance was quickly followed by Hannity, who echoed the sentiment, expressing his own frustration and fear. Hannity, a stalwart of the Trump camp, could barely contain his emotions as he lambasted the media for what he perceived as a conspiracy to undermine the former president. He attacked the rising popularity of Harris, insinuating that her handling of the post-Hurricane Helen recovery was being overhyped. But it was clear to viewers that the real problem wasn't Harris or the media. It was the undeniable fact that Trump's star was fading. The panic within Fox News is not just about Trump's sliding poll numbers. It's about the realization that America is changing, and not in the way the network has long hoped for. For years, Fox News has operated under the assumption that Trump's base would remain loyal no matter what. But as his legal entanglements deepen, especially with the January 6th investigations led by special counsel Jack Smith, and as more Republicans begin to publicly distance themselves from him, the once unthinkable is starting to happen. Fox News is losing its grip on the narrative. This is where Kamala Harris comes in. Harris, who has been instrumental in leading the recovery efforts after Hurricane Helen, is receiving widespread praise, even from some Republican governors. Fox News, however, has been working overtime to discredit her achievements, with Laura Ingraham and Sean Hannity leading the charge. Ingraham, for instance, was visibly upset about the temporary suspension of the longshoremen strike, attempting to blame Harris for the situation. "We should never have been here in the first place," she fumed, despite the fact that the Washington Post had reported a successful negotiation between the dock workers' union and their employers, resulting in a 62% wage increase over 6 years. But no amount of spin could hide the fact that Harris and the Biden administration had been doing an effective job. Even Hannity, who has made a career out of demonizing Democrats, seemed to struggle with the narrative. He angrily declared that Harris's handling of the storm recovery was Kamala's Katrina, a weak attempt to draw parallels between Harris and the catastrophic handling of Hurricane Katrina by the Bush administration. But as political commentators like Aaron Rupar have pointed out, the analogy doesn't hold up, and even Republican governors have been forced to admit that the recovery efforts are being managed well. 3. Spinning a losing story. The Fox News propaganda machine. As Graham and Hannity grappled with the reality of Trump's dwindling prospects, other Fox News personalities were also having a tough time keeping the propaganda machine running smoothly. The network is increasingly relying on bombastic and factually dubious claims to rally its base, but it's clear that this strategy is wearing thin. For example, Fox News invited Republican Senate candidate Hung Chau, who is running against Democratic incumbent Tim Kaine in Virginia, onto the network. The chyron beneath his segment read, "GOP Senate candidate crushes incumbent in debate," a bold claim that was quickly debunked by multiple sources. In fact, Chau's debate performance was widely mocked, with many pointing out his bizarre and offensive statements. At one point, he criticized the U.S. Navy for using drag queens in their recruitment efforts, saying, "What we need is alpha males and alpha females who are going to rip out their own guts, eat them, and ask for seconds." It was a comment so outlandish that it seemed more like satire than a serious political statement. Despite the ridicule, Fox News doubled down, portraying Chau as a rising star in the Republican Party. But this kind of hyperbole is becoming harder for viewers to swallow, especially as real issues like healthcare and economic stability take center stage in voters' minds. Chau himself made headlines for another bizarre claim during the debate, stating that no one in the United States is like, "Oh my gosh, I will die if I don't have health care." This statement, of course, flies in the face of reality, as millions of Americans struggle with access to affordable health care, particularly in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. 4. Trump's legal woes, the elephant in the room. While Fox News continues to spin Trump as a misunderstood hero, the former president's legal troubles are becoming too big to ignore. The recent 165-page filing by Jack Smith, released by Judge Tanya Chutkan, contains damning evidence against Trump related to his role in the January 6th insurrection. Fox News, however, has been remarkably silent on the details of the case, choosing instead to focus on the alleged witch hunt against Trump. Judge Jeanine Pirro, one of Trump's most vocal defenders on Fox's The Five, went so far as to claim that the legal proceedings were election interference. But as many legal experts have pointed out, Trump's legal strategy, asking for delays and filing frivolous motions, speaks to his desperation rather than any legitimate defense. If Trump had even a shred of evidence to refute the charges against him, he would have presented it by now. Instead, he continues to claim that the entire process is rigged, a narrative that Fox News is only too happy to amplify. Meanwhile, voices like Jessica Tarlov, one of the few pro-democracy commentators on Fox, have been pushing back against this narrative. Tarlov recently pointed out that during California's wildfires, Trump refused to release disaster relief funds until he was shown voter data proving that his supporters lived in the affected areas. This kind of callous, self-serving behavior stands in stark contrast to Harris and Biden's response to Hurricane Helen, where aid was distributed swiftly and effectively, regardless of political affiliation. As the 2024 election approaches, it's becoming increasingly clear that Fox News is struggling to maintain its influence. The emotional breakdowns of figures like Lindsey Graham and Sean Hannity are not just isolated incidents. They are symptomatic of a larger crisis within the network. For years, Fox News has thrived by stoking fear and anger, positioning Donald Trump as the savior of American democracy. But now, with Trump's legal troubles mounting and his base slowly eroding, the network finds itself in unfamiliar territory. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's success in handling national crises, coupled with the growing disillusionment with Trump's antics, has left Fox News in a precarious position. The network's attempts to spin Trump's blunders are becoming less effective, and even its most loyal viewers are beginning to question the veracity of its reporting. In the end, Fox News may find that it can no longer control the narrative, and that the future of American politics is moving in a direction they are ill-prepared to navigate. As Lindsey Graham and Hannity's meltdown illustrates, Fox News is facing a reckoning. Whether they choose to adapt or continue down their current path remains to be seen. But one thing is clear: the days of unchecked dominance over the conservative narrative may be coming to an end.